Oh, I can tell you a lot about the piece. This is the last tone poem of Strauss, written in 1915, but he spent a long time writing it. And it's a unique piece because it's 50 minutes long, depicting a fantastic event, actually. He starts off at just before dawn, and then the sun comes up, and we see in the distance a mountain, and then one takes off on a wonderful climb, and the music itself takes you up and up and up until you reach the summit of the mountain, and there he really goes into ecstasies of the beauty and the surroundings, and then he heads down, and on the way down, of course, there's a thunderstorm, and he passes all the things that he had on the way up. So it's an enormous piece. The form is actually determined by the events in the trip up. So you start off very slowly at the bottom of the mountain. You go by a waterfall. You go through the brambles. You go to the valley where you see cows and geese and sheep, and then you get higher and higher, and finally you get to the gipfel, the peak of the mountain, and at the very top of the mountain there's this very soft section where the oboe plays beautiful kind of reverie about what it's like to be there. And then you have this fantastic brass thing of the fanfare, and I just, it's hard really to describe the piece. I think you have to hear it. It's like picture postcards. If you've ever taken a mountain climb, you see everything. And then when you come down, there's this wonderful idea of fatigue at the end, and you see the valley and the church playing music at the thing, and then night comes. It begins. It ends as it begins, and it ends in darkness again. But this time with the moon and the stars. The important thing is we're doing this with the pictures of Tobias Meller, and the pictures illustrate so well this journey that Strauss takes us on. And Strauss said that he composed music the way a cow gives milk, and it's great how he illustrates things. Hunters off in the distance, cows in the fields, waterfall, the sound of a waterfall. Well, I think simply because for an evening out, I think it's a tone poem that you don't often get to hear. I mean, it's a huge orchestra. It's like 125, 130 players. I think when Strauss first premiered it, he had 170 to play it. So it's a big tour de force. It shows off the orchestra to its extremes. And I think it's a wonderful thing for young people to see. And of course, we're doing it with these wonderful dias of Tobias Meller. So it's like going to the movies in a way. So that's why we chose it. I think I'm very lucky to have an orchestra that's played it a few times. So my rehearsal process is to play as much of it through as I can, work on the sections that need working on, but mainly it's also getting the orchestra through that long journey. So I don't like to stop too much and deal in nitty gritty. But I'm also very lucky that we've recorded the piece and the parts are well prepared and everybody kind of knows it. So it's less hard than a Beethoven symphony in a way. Oh, well, I think uh, what they get is the excitement of live sound, which you cannot capture, especially in a piece like this on any recording. I mean, you would have to have the greatest equipment in the world. But when you're there and you hear this tremendous sound with the organ and all the brass playing as loud as possible, and just this physical beauty of the sound. I think that's something that you only get in a live concert, and you only get in a hall like the Tonhalle. What's great is actually to listen to music with your friends, and then discuss it, either as it's going on. I mean, if you're listening to recordings, and listen to it as it's going on, discuss it, and say what you like about it, what you don't like about it, what grabs you the most about it. I think music is in a way a communal experience, and the more listening you do with friends, the better it is. And so I would say that's what you should do. If you're going to listen to a piece of music, don't listen to it only by yourself, but listen to it with friends and have a chance to talk about it a little bit. I think the most important thing when bringing over a piece like this is to have it in your head, actually, what you want to bring across and what the sound of the piece is, what Strauss had in mind, for instance. I try somehow in my rehearsals to bring over, for instance, to the orchestra, that at the end of the piece there's this beautiful calm that comes over everything, and just to say to them, for instance, that at the end of the piece one feels what a hiker and a mountain climber would feel when he came down at the end. He'd be tired, he'd be sunburned a little bit, he'll be cold from the storm, and so on. And then you have this wonderful kind of feeling of nostalgia and regret that the day is over, all of these things. So when I rehearse the orchestra, I try to bring that over to them. Yeah, I think originally this piece started off as an idea, and the idea was he wanted to write a symphony about the mountains. He was an avid climber himself. When he bought a house, he bought it in Garmisch, where he could look over these beautiful mountains, and he always had that in mind. And he thought of writing something that would be a reminiscence of a day he had actually climbing a mountain. And then it moved on. It didn't work out for him. He wrote many other pieces in the meantime. And then he had this idea of a kind of Nietzschean idea that this would be a piece called the Antichrist. In other words, that man would find his salvation not in religion, but in nature. And therefore he called this his Nature Symphony, but also the Antichrist. And then he took the Antichrist off of the title and just made it an Alpine Symphony. So I think that's important to know about this. Also, as I say, it's his last tone poem, and it was written for the orchestra of the Dresden Opera, which at that time was one of the best opera houses in Germany, and he had at his disposal a huge orchestra. In those days, the orchestra could be up to 200 people who would do a whole season of opera. So if he wanted to have 18 horns, he could have 18 horns. And if he wanted to have 24 first violins, he could have 24 violins. So this piece is a kind of manifestation, a kind of gargantuan idea of the symphony orchestra, and that's why it's not played all that much. You need a large apparatus to do it, and usually it costs a lot of money to do this piece. So, but it's nice to hear it every once in a while for an audience, just to get in there and enjoy this beautiful, fantastic sound that it makes. And the nice thing about the piece is it's not only the big events, but it's also the very subtle, soft things that are so unusual and so great in this piece.